Austin 911, what's your emergency?
My friend is staying with me, and I just walked in, and she's laying on the bathroom floor, and there's blood everywhere.
Austin, please! Hey.
Do I stop?
Hey, what?
I don't know what happened. I just walked in on her.
Sit up.
Did you kill Mel?
No.
On May 11, 2022, tragedy struck Austin, Texas, when elite cyclist Anna Moriah Wilson was found brutally murdered in a case that would grip the city with shock and speculation. Only hours after her death, whispers began circulating about jealousy, love, and revenge, all pointing toward a tangled relationship between Anna, prominent cyclist Colin Strickland, and another woman whose actions would unravel the mystery. The sequence of events unfolded late in the evening when Anna's friend, Caitlin returned to her home on Maple Avenue where Anna was staying for the weekend and stumbled upon a horrifying scene. Caitlin immediately called 911, her voice shaking as she described Anna motionless on the bathroom floor, with blood surrounding her head and face. Despite paramedics' quick arrival, Anna was already gone. Police officers responded to a grisly scene, quickly noting evidence of cerebrospinal fluid, a clear sign that Anna had sustained fatal gunshot wounds to the skull. There was no possibility of saving her. This was no accident. Right from the start, confusion surrounded the case. Caitlin explained to detectives that Anna was only in town for a competitive bike race, staying as a guest. Earlier that day, Anna had spent time with Colin Strickland, her on-again, off-again romantic interest, as they went swimming together before Anna returned home alone to Caitlin's house. Caitlin stated she hadn't noticed any arguments and that Anna was seemingly fine when she left for dinner with friends. Anna's background came out in questioning, originally from Vermont, living in San Francisco, and just visiting Austin for the weekend. Caitlin provided officers with all the details they asked for, including Colin's name and contact information, in hopes it would help catch the perpetrator. At first, investigators considered the murder might have been a robbery gone wrong, but as they dug deeper, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in a chilling way. Clues from the scene started to point toward a deeply personal motive. This was a carefully planned crime, not a random act. The resulting investigation would expose a web of passion, jealousy, and betrayal, a deadly love triangle, and a killer much closer to Anna than anyone could have expected. If stories like these feel overwhelming, it's important to remember that mental health support is available and reaching out is a sign of strength. Resources exist for anyone struggling after hearing difficult news or witnessing tragedy. For those fascinated by true crime, the unraveling of this case would become an unforgettable story, with details of the investigation shining a light on secret relationships and a murder that stunned a community. In the hours following the murder of Anna Moriah Wilson, investigators focused on piecing together her final movements and determining who could have been responsible for her brutal death. According to her friend Caitlin, Anna had been spending time with her ex-boyfriend, Colin Strickland, throughout the day. Caitlin shared with police that she left home for dinner at 5:30 p.m. and when she returned just minutes before her 911 call, she discovered Anna's body. This tight timeline instantly made Colin a major person of interest, and officers recognized he would need to be questioned in detail. However, there were more urgent matters to consider at the crime scene. It was soon established that Anna was visiting Austin for an upcoming bike race, and she had brought with her a state-of-the-art racing bicycle valued at an astonishing $14,000, not $114,000, as some reports claimed. Police quickly noticed that this expensive bike was missing from the house, a possible sign that theft might have been the motive, or at least that it would be central to unraveling what really happened. The idea took shape that perhaps someone had been waiting for Anna to be home alone, attempted to steal the bike, and ended up killing her when she tried to resist. With almost nothing else to go on, officers found out to search for the missing bike, believing its whereabouts might hold the key to the case. Inside the house, police noted that Anna would typically keep her bike just inside the front door, but that spot was empty. Cash confirmed that this was exactly where her friend would have left it, which deepened the mystery. Expanding the search, officers made their way into the wooded area nearby, ultimately stumbling upon the bicycle abandoned in the brush. The discovery upended their initial robbery theory. Why would a thief steal such a valuable bike, only to immediately dump it nearby? Officers concluded that the bike had been left there deliberately, perhaps as a diversion to send the investigation down the wrong path. This realization marked a turning point. If the perpetrator was clever enough to throw police off as their very first move, they might also be skilled enough to hide other evidence and cover their tracks. As detectives collected forensic evidence at the scene, they carefully gathered shell casings. The spent bullet shells could be vital for matching the murder weapon later on. Caitlin Cash, as the person who found Anna and the last one documented to see her alive, was brought in for a routine gunshot residue swab. This was standard procedure. If investigators skipped this step, defense lawyers could later argue she hadn't been cleared as a suspect. After testing, the results were negative, and the narrow, blood-spattered bathroom left officers certain that Caitlin could not physically have committed the murder. While she was quickly ruled out, she provided detectives with a valuable lead, confirming that Colin Strickland was the last person in contact with Anna before the murder. Digging deeper, police learned that Anna and Colin had been seen together earlier that evening at a nearby cafe, sharing drinks. This information made Strickland a critical figure in reconstructing the hours leading up to Anna's death. But before they could speak with him, officers canvassed the neighborhood and noticed several houses were equipped with security cameras. Obtaining the footage, they made a breakthrough discovery. Silent, grainy CCTV captured a black Jeep slowly driving toward Caitlin's house on the night of the murder. At the crucial moment, doorbell cameras picked up the chilling sounds of the attack before the vehicle sped away. This was an unmistakable lead, although the video was too poor in quality to identify the driver or definitively read the license plate. Days later, as detectives prepared to question Colin Strickland, they spotted the same mysterious black Jeep parked right outside his home. The coincidence was impossible to ignore, bringing a new layer of suspicion to Colin's involvement and raising urgent questions about who really orchestrated the events that led to Anna Wilson's murder. Detectives were speaking with Colin Strickland, who had just learned the heartbreaking news about his friend and former flame, Anna Mo Wilson. He was visibly shaken when officers told him that Mo had passed away and that her death was now officially being investigated as a homicide. What Colin didn't realize was that police already saw him as their main suspect. He'd been the last person to see Mo alive, and the black Jeep spotted on security cameras near the crime scene was now sitting in his own driveway, complete with a bicycle rack on the back. Despite the mounting suspicion, the officers didn't let Colin know all the details right away, especially that Mo had been killed. Instead, they calmly asked for things like Mo's mother's address. They wanted to break the news face to face, rather than over the phone. As they continued their questions, officers noticed that Colin avoided eye contact and seemed uncomfortable. Their investigation into Colin's background unearths some complicated details. Colin had been dating Caitlin Armstrong, but there had been a breakup in October 2021. During that time, Colin and Mo dated for about a month, before he got back together with Caitlin. Even after rekindling his relationship with Caitlin, Colin and Mo stayed in touch. This was important, because not only did Caitlin know about Colin's friendship with Mo, she had a strong dislike for her. When officers ran the license plate on the black Jeep, they discovered it actually belonged to Caitlin, not Colin. With Caitlin's jealousy and her car at the crime scene, detectives realized she could be a major suspect. A couple of days after the murder, police called Colin back in for a formal interview. They wanted to do two things: check Colin's alibi and get any information that might point to Caitlin or anyone else who might be involved. Colin did his best to answer, explaining their evening. He and Mo had burgers at a restaurant at around 7:45 p.m. then left as it was getting dark. He dropped Mo off shortly before dark and texted Caitlin as he drove away, around 8:36 p.m. He said Caitlin was in a yoga class at the time, and later he saw her at home, dressed in her yoga clothes and carrying her mat. Detectives double-checked the small details, like where Caitlin had been that night. Colin explained she'd had a laser hair removal appointment at 7 p.m. and then attended a yoga class downtown. He said she texted him about meeting up, but that he didn't respond, and Caitlin didn't get home until just after 9:20 p.m. She didn't say much when she came in, and Colin remembered she was still in her workout gear. As the questioning continued, officers tried to untangle the timeline, figure out everyone's whereabouts, and see exactly how the black Jeep fit into all of this. Even with some answers, it was becoming clear that this case was far from over, and the real story was only just beginning. When detectives pressed Colin Strickland about Caitlin Armstrong's whereabouts during the time of Anna Moriah Wilson's murder, he couldn't give them a firm answer. He didn't seem to know exactly where Caitlin had gone for yoga or even what studio she might have attended. Colin also managed to avoid admitting to his romantic relationship with Anna, trying to downplay the significance of their connection. But as the investigation unfolded and more facts emerged, it became clear that Colin would have to come clean to the police about everything that had happened between him, Mo, and Caitlin. Detectives asked Colin how long he and Caitlin had been dating. He told them it had been around a year and a half, nearly 2 years, although there was a brief break during which he dated Mo. Even while Colin was seeing Mo, he admitted Caitlin had still been living with him part-time, as she transitioned to a new residence. The living situation was messy and caused tension, with Colin feeling like he'd almost forced an uncomfortable arrangement on everyone involved. The officers then brought up a strange detail: Colin had changed Mo's name in his phone to avoid arguments with Caitlin, who had been jealous whenever she found out about his communication with Mo. He explained that fights would erupt whenever Caitlin discovered messages from Mo, so he felt compelled to hide their conversations. Both detectives and Colin acknowledged that jealousy was a driving force behind relationship troubles, which was not unique but definitely present in this triangle. Through careful questioning, officers accomplished two things. First, they were able to clear Colin of suspicion. He had solid timestamps and text messages to back up his alibi, showing he'd dropped off Mo before the estimated time of death, and after that, all evidence pointed away from him. More importantly, what they learned about Caitlin made her stand out as their primary suspect. Of the 3 people closest to the victim, Colin, Caitlin Cash, and Caitlin Armstrong, only Caitlin had large gaps in her timeline that night. Even with this information, the detectives still didn't have enough hard evidence to arrest her. That's when a routine database search turned up a helpful technicality. Caitlin had an outstanding warrant for a minor theft of service charge, something unrelated to the murder. It wasn't much, but it gave officers the legal grounds they needed to bring Caitlin in for questioning about the murder under the guise of addressing the warrant. Detective Connor met Caitlin in the interview room, trying to keep the mood casual to avoid raising suspicion. Even as he started discussing the warrant, playing it off as a minor theft of service issue, he made it clear that he needed to read her rights. Caitlin, who was visibly nervous, asked if she needed a lawyer since she had no idea what the warrant was about. The officer minimized the issue, continuing to steer the conversation back toward the information he hoped Caitlin could provide about Mo's death. Throughout the exchange, the detective never answered Caitlin's direct questions about the warrant. Instead, he kept the conversation focused on the murder case, hoping to gather as much as possible before she caught on. But then an unexpected hiccup changed everything. While Caitlin sat in custody, another officer knocked on the door with some news. The warrant had been made out to the wrong person, due to a mix-up with the date of birth. This meant that, technically, Caitlin had been brought in without legal right to hold her, and so, to the dismay of the officers, Caitlin was no longer under arrest and had to be allowed to walk free, even though she was still their prime suspect in the murder of Anna Wilson. After learning that the warrant used to detain Caitlin Armstrong was invalid, she was informed that she was free to leave and no longer under arrest. Despite the detectives' attempts to keep her engaged, explaining that they wanted to clear up some inconsistencies, since Colin had mentioned her name, Caitlin remained cautious and requested to have an attorney present. Legally, this meant the detective had to stop any further questioning related to the murder. Nevertheless, the officer tried to maintain a calm and friendly tone, hoping to encourage Caitlin to cooperate voluntarily. He emphasized that talking could help clarify things, especially since Colin's version of events seemed one-sided and possibly incomplete. Caitlin reiterated her desire to leave multiple times, clearly uncomfortable and unwilling to discuss the situation without legal counsel. She expressed frustration over being arrested publicly in front of her neighbors and dragged into custody, but admitted to understanding that the officers had no control over that. The detective gently pressed, mentioning that Colin had reported a death in the cycling community, referring to Anna Wilson, and that her name had come up during their conversations. He suggested there might be unresolved issues between Caitlin and Anna that she could help explain. Caitlin remained confused about what the officer meant, repeatedly saying she didn't know anything about Colin spending time with Anna or being upset about it. The detective acknowledged Caitlin's wish to leave, but warned that without her side of the story, the investigation would only have Colin's potentially biased perspective. He tried to open the door for her to share more about her whereabouts and feelings, pointing out that her vehicle had been seen near the victim's house, which couldn't be ignored. He hinted that jealousy might have been a motive, reinforcing why they wanted her to be honest. Despite these efforts, Caitlin stood firm, requesting to leave and asserting that she was free to do so. The officers had no legal grounds to detain her further, and she was allowed to go. However, her unwillingness to cooperate only deepened their suspicion that she was hiding something crucial. With Caitlin out of reach, detectives turned back to Colin Strickland, hoping to learn more from him about Caitlin and the dynamics between all three individuals. They called him in for a second interview, but this time Colin arrived with his lawyer, making it significantly more difficult for officers to question him. During this interview, Colin revealed that Caitlin had not been happy about Anna's presence in Austin. He explained that he had broken up with Caitlin before Anna came to town, and that he hadn't even known Anna was coming until shortly before the race. The tension and complexities between the three were becoming clearer, but with legal counsel now involved, getting answers was going to be a tougher challenge for the investigators. Colin Strickland explained that he had no idea Anna Wilson was coming to Austin until shortly before she arrived. Once she was there, he suggested they hang out, and mentally, he was ready to move on from his relationship with Caitlin Armstrong. Even after Mo left town, Caitlin's belongings were still at Colin's house, but they were sleeping in separate rooms. Colin said Caitlin had started dating other people and was actively using dating apps like Bumble. Although he didn't ask much about Caitlin's new relationships, he knew she was seeing several men, and he was okay with that arrangement. From Colin's perspective, it seemed strange that Caitlin would be so fixated on Anna when she appeared to be moving on with her own life. Colin described the relationship between Caitlin and Anna as troubled, especially considering that both Colin and Caitlin had moved on to new relationships during their break. This made investigators want to look more closely at Caitlin's behavior during that time to see if she showed any obsessive or controlling tendencies. When asked what kind of person Caitlin was, Colin said she was usually happy but could get mad like anyone else. He firmly believed that Caitlin would never hurt anyone seriously, saying that if anyone was likely to lash out, it would probably be his young son, not Caitlin. He insisted he didn't think Caitlin was capable of murder and that if she had been planning something dangerous, he would have removed himself from the situation to protect both himself and others. Colin said he advised Caitlin and Anna to stop talking to each other while the investigation was ongoing and mentioned that since the previous Friday midday, he hadn't spoken to or seen Caitlin. When detectives visited his house, his father was able to contact Caitlin through a mutual attorney, but other than that, there was no contact. Colin also shared that Caitlin had never mentioned any desire to harm Anna physically, and he trusted she was not capable of such violence. He mentioned that Caitlin and her sister had gone to a gun range somewhere south, near the I-35 corridor, sometime in early December, where he had bought her the guns for self-defense. Ironically, after police examined the firearms, they found that the bullets used in Anna's murder matched the caliber of the guns Colin had purchased for Caitlin. So far, police had found Caitlin's car at the crime scene, knew about her jealous behavior, and were aware she owned the same type of gun used in the murder. As they continued to search for her and gather evidence, the investigation increasingly pointed to Caitlin as the likely culprit, while clearing Colin of any involvement. The police collected and compared cell phone data alongside surveillance footage, which allowed them to track the movements of Anna, Colin, and Caitlin on the night of May 11, 2022. They established that Colin and Anna had been at a poolside barbecue around 7 p.m. After their swim, when they left, they headed back to Anna's place on Maple Avenue, unaware that Caitlin was following them in her car, stalking the pair as they drove in the same direction. Caitlin Armstrong thought turning off her cell phone would help her avoid detection, but surveillance cameras told a different story. The footage showed a black Jeep, strikingly similar to Caitlin's vehicle, closing in on the house where Anna Moriah Wilson was killed. As Colin Strickland dropped Moriah off at her home on Maple Avenue, neither of them realized that Caitlin was secretly following them, just a short distance away. The same black Jeep was seen driving down a nearby alley, slowly moving toward Moriah's house. Moments after Colin left, a neighbor's doorbell camera captured audio of Moriah screaming for her life before the attack. Meanwhile, Colin's cell phone data placed him driving away from the area before the murder took place, clearing him as a suspect. This left Caitlin as the only person who could have committed the crime. When officers went to arrest Caitlin, they hit a major obstacle. Just hours earlier, she had fled the country using a fake passport that belonged to her sister. Caitlin likely used the fake passport to avoid detection, giving her enough time to escape. After retrieving a warrant to check her criminal records, police found a one-way plane ticket to Costa Rica. Surveillance footage from Austin Bergstrom International Airport confirmed Caitlin's departure as she boarded her flight. In Costa Rica, she had booked a hostel near Santa Teresa Beach, working as a yoga instructor to blend in. To catch her, an officer posted an ad on social media looking for a local yoga teacher. Caitlin responded to the ad and agreed to meet. Despite trying to hide her identity by undergoing several surgeries to change her appearance, Caitlin's eyes gave her away, and the arresting officer recognized her right away. She was caught, extradited to the United States, and charged with attempted murder. But Caitlin's attempts to avoid justice didn't end there. In October 2023, she tried to escape again during a doctor's appointment outside jail. She jumped out of a bathroom window, but was caught almost immediately. Even with her multiple escape attempts and forging documents, there was plenty of evidence to convict Caitlin. The clear surveillance video, Colin Strickland's testimony, and ballistic tests proving the bullets matched the gun she owned convinced the jury beyond doubt. On November 16, 2023, after a year and a half of legal battles, Caitlin Armstrong was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 90 years in prison for the cold-blooded killing of Anna Moriah Wilson. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the tragic and complex case of Anna Moriah Wilson. If you found this story compelling, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming true crime videos. Let us know in the comments what cases you'd like us to cover next. Remember, behind every story is real people and real pain. Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.